We're afraid of what people will think, or we're afraid we're not good enough, or we're afraid we're too much. And so we hold ourselves back. When we do that, we're muting ourselves. And there are too many people that are muting themselves in the world. And I, for so many years, was one of them. I've discovered the power of unmuting myself, of showing up in the world in a way that is joyfully expressed and boldly alive. That's something that has been so important to me as I've discovered how freeing it is to be unmuted, to unmute our body and to unmute our ideas and to unmute our desires, to unmute ourselves in relationships and at work, and to be our own advocates and to ask for what we want and need. The unmuted life is a life that is fully alive and fully expressed and confident and clear. And to me, it's the only way that I know how to live now. I know what it's like to feel confined and stuck and small and silenced. And I also know what it feels like to be expressed and alive and joyful and present and seen. And it's so much better of a life to be unmuted. And that is what I want to bring you into. Are you ready to unmute yourself? Let's make it happen. Hi there. Welcome, everybody. I am so excited to be with all of you today. A shout out again to Daniel Hall. That video, every time I'm like, man, there are just some people that are so incredibly talented that just do amazing things. And Daniel Hall is one of them. I just want to welcome the folks who are coming in and joining us. Got some of our regulars. Hey, oh my gosh. Got Brian Schulman and hey, Zach Demopoulos is here from New Jersey. Shout out to Jersey. I know we've got California, we've got some West Coasters here. We've got Michael Skiba from Oceanside, Long Island, New York. Tim from Shahola, PA. We've got, hey, John. Oh my goodness. So John and I, check this out. So John Disselkamp and I met at a conference. I was speaking at a conference in Louisville on Saturday with a group of building service contractors, these executive leaders who are really looking for ways to help to retain and engage their people. And so John and I had the opportunity to meet each other, and then we chatted for about 10 minutes or so after. And it's just been such a joy to be back in person with people and to get to see their smiles and hear their laughter and see their tears and to hug and to take pictures together and all that. It's so fun. So John, I'm so glad that you're here. And I'm so glad that we got to connect. And I just knew when I told him who my guest was today, it's like, oh, I'm gonna be there. big fan of Gary Vee. So shout out to John. We've got Corinne here. Corinne's one of my former coworkers. Michael Ray. So this was the coolest thing, you guys. I'm curious if you have ever had an experience where you've met someone first on social media, maybe here on LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook or somewhere else, and then you got to meet in person, and you got to see each other's eyes, and you got to hug, and you got to have fun together. And so Michael Ray, who was a guest on this show earlier this year, I've been connected to him for 2 years on here and on LinkedIn, and have really just enjoyed his content and the way that he shows up in the world with such a big heart. And so I was in Louisville, as I mentioned, for that, speaking at that conference. And I told him I was going to be there because I know he lived in Louisville. And I said, well, I'm trying to figure out where I should stay. And, you know, if I should go to this event. They had this big fireworks show and flyover in Louisville, like the biggest fireworks show in the United States, where 500,000 people come out for this. And he said, you're not going to go to that alone. You're going to stay with us. It's called family. And I was like, I mean, that's all you need to know about Mike. I mean, Michael's just a great guy in general, but that was just, to me, a reflection of really living out who you show up as online. I mean, just the biggest heart. And so we got to spend time together, and I got to meet members of his family, and we had such a wonderful time. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Michael, and Brian is here. Welcome, Brian. Brian, I think it's Rock. Is it Rock or Roz? You can put the pronunciation there for us in the comments. Jason Hurley, shout out to Jason Hurley for being here. So glad that all of you are here. This is going to be an incredible show. I'm really excited about it. I'm really excited about our guest today, and I just want to give a couple announcements before we get into hearing from our amazing guest. We're going to have a conversation that I know will be life-giving and heart-centered. But so a couple things I want to mention that I've been up to. So I've been on the road for 10 days. Last night was my first night home since the night before Good Friday. So like it's been a minute, and it was so wonderful to sleep in my own bed last night, and to have some acupuncture this morning. And so I mentioned this last time. I had just started reading a new book, and I wanted to mention it all to you. And we're going to drop a link in the comments in case you want to check it out. The book, The Power of Regret by Dan Pink. So he just came out with this recently, and it's a great book about how looking backward moves us forward, and how maybe the phrase no regrets is not a useful way to live, because regret, when we have regret about something, it shows us what we value. It shows us what we value. And so it was just a really fantastic book that I would highly recommend. A really great book if you're looking for something good, quick and easy read. He's such a fascinating writer. So that would be something that I would recommend. And then just one more little housekeeping note is I am doing a virtual class. So I'm one of the new instructors for Simon Sinek's online virtual classroom. And I'm going to be doing the same class about speak up, be your own advocate in the workplace. I'm going to do one on May 5th and one on June 7th. So we're going to drop the link for that in case you want to register for that. Anybody can come to that. And it's going to be done virtually. And so I'm super stoked about that. And I think that's all we've got for announcements. I would love, as we're transitioning to me introducing our guest today, would love for you to drop into the comments, what are 3 good things? So we've talked about this before, the importance of focusing on gratitude and on kind of starting with something that opens up our heart, not just our head. And so what I would love to do is to invite you to drop into the comments, what are 3 good things that have happened in your life in the past 24 hours, or perhaps something that you're grateful for? I'll kind of kick us off while you're thinking here. And I think a good thing I had was a visit with my acupuncturist this morning, got me in the right state of mind and presence to come on here today. Another good thing that happened in my life is I got to hug my husband for the first time in a week yesterday, which was delightful. And then another good thing was that I got to hang out with Michael Ray this weekend. So drop in the comments when you get a chance, and welcome. Enrique is here with us. Enrique Gonzalez. So good to have you here. So drop in the comments. What are your 3 good things? What are your 3 good things? 3 good things that have happened in your life. You could just start with one. If you just want to start with one, that works too. And hey, Nancy, Deborah, beautiful people. So feel free to drop in there anything that has been a good thing that's happened in your life, something that you're grateful for. And welcome to Alex from Mexico. So awesome. So awesome. Sometimes there can be a little bit of a lag here, but yes, gratitude, life, family, health. Yes, open your heart, Brian Schulman, every day. Fantastic. So keep them coming if you have something that comes to mind, something that, again, is something you're grateful for. Keep those hearts, those heart emojis and all that stuff coming, but let us know in the comments. Take that moment to give yourself the gift of reflection, to connect to your heart and to think of what is something good that has happened recently in my life or is happening in my life right now. Dinner with friends, gifting some art, sick kids getting better, Toby says. Family, faith, and employment. That's what Maureen said. Excellent. Yeah, so many good things. So many good things. Yeah, keep them coming. Beautiful weather, trip to the zoo with family, tarot card reading. That's what Amy said. Excellent. So today I want to introduce to you our guest. Many of you, I'm sure, are here because you're fans. And if you're not already a fan and don't already know this person, you're gonna be a fan. You're gonna be a fast fan, and we're gonna follow and learn from her. So we've got Claude Silver, has been the Chief Heart Officer at VaynerX since 2016. And I love this. Her life's purpose is to be of joyful service and unlock emotional optimism in all. And so she has these shirts. Check it out. Let's see if I can. The emotional optimism shirt. We'll drop a link for that in the comments that you can, there's shirts, and then there's sweatshirts, and then there's new stuff. She just shared there's new stuff that's going to be coming out on the shop. soon. And most of the proceeds to these shirts, I'll let Claude tell you where they go to. So it's something that you can really feel really good about, really heart centered about. So in her role, she oversees anything that has to do with people, including talent management, employee experience and retention, learning and development, coaching, culture, internal communications, and recruitment. And we are both part of a group called the Talent Champions Council with Scott McGregor and a bunch of other amazing people that are focused on doing, again, heart-led, people first, putting people over everything. Scott says, putting people over everything and really having that be our priority. So we're going to have a conversation today just about ways that kind of Claude's journey of getting muted and any area of she wants to talk about and what that unmuting looks like, and then also what they've done at her organization to focus on unmuting the voices of their people and giving them a space to be heard and to be seen and to be validated. So with that, if you will drop in the comments, everybody, a warm welcome to Claude Silver. Yay!
Hey! Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, everyone. So great to be here. Without even knowing it, I had my hoodie on today. Without, we didn't plan on being twins, but there we go. Thank you for having me, and thank everyone for their comments here. And that video blew me away. I was like, yes.
Thank you. Daniel Hall is such a talent. He's done a lot of videos for Brian Schulman and for Tim Sohn and for Nancy Barros and other people on here. And he's just, super talented guy, and just takes, you know how it is, given the work that your company does, when people can take a vision that somebody has and just put legs on it and put heart in it. And you just have this sense of awe sometimes seeing what people are able to create, right?
Oh, I'm blown away. It's like one of those skills I really want to admit I don't have. It's not like, oh yeah, Claude, you're creative. Like, sure, I'm creative in my own way, but I don't have that level of creativity. And it's funny, working in advertising agencies forever, I think one of the things that really drew me there was to be able to be connected with those that are able to make magic, whether or not that's on a screen, on a t-shirt, on a TV commercial, on a poster, on a TikTok. I've always loved that because I really think they're alchemists. They're just able to take info and somehow process it into something that shines. And it's like, oh yeah, of course that's the logo for that,
Yeah. That's so cool. It is. And it's inspiring. It's really inspiring to see that happen. We've already got some folks that are like, I need me some swag. They're dropping in the comments. They're like, I'm getting myself a shirt. So we'll have more people representing that, and I'm sure tagging on LinkedIn and all that. So what I'd love to do, Claude, first, and we first connected, I started following your stuff several years ago, just because I've worked in the HR community for 16 years, and I just really appreciated the fact that you were showing up boldly with this message around the importance of integrating ourselves at work and focusing on bringing heart. And that's not something we leave at the door, and inviting your people to show up more fully. And I think I would love to at some point today hear the poetry story that you shared with me last year, because I just think that's such a cool example of that. And so, as we get started, I'd love to do a kind of a heart personal connection here. I would love to invite you to grab an item or object in your space that reflects something or someone that brings you joy. Oh, I cannot wait. Tell us about this creature.
My 3-year-old, her name is Shalom. She's 3.5 now. And she loves unicorns. She calls them hee-haws. And I mean, they're everywhere. They're on her bedspread. They're on her shirt. They're on her underwear. They're wherever. And she brought this into me the other day. We just moved, like I told you. I've never seen this one before. And she brought this one into me. And she just left it right here on my desk. And here it will stay. The hee-haw, the magical hee-haw.
The magical hee-haw.
She brings me so much joy. So looking at this right here next to, I have other trinkets that I like to keep near me always. This is the newest, and it really is probably the one that's really like capturing my heart today.
Yeah. Oh, that's so great. Thank you for sharing that. If people want to drop a magical hee haw emoji into the comments. It might not come up when you search it, but if you search unicorn, it'll probably come up.
I should probably get that URL today.
You should.
Magical hee-haw. And then like on her 16th birthday, I'll present her with some kind of fun website that Daniel Hall had created for me or something.
Exactly, exactly. And I love here Jason's just a beautiful name, Shalom. And when we came on,
Thank you.
we were talking about something I was sharing with you that my business coach, Chris Steer, had said to me about a week ago when I was sharing with him. I had such a life-giving weekend. Alex, so good to have you here. Um, he says, here for everything that gives you joy and more hee-haws. And I was sharing with him how I was feeling so filled up. We have these moments where we're spending time with people that we love and we feel grounded and we have nothing to prove and nothing to lose. And he said, it sounds like you're experiencing the state of shalom, of nothing missing, nothing broken.
Yeah. Yeah. And shalom also as peace, and peace is such a force. I think sometimes we forget, we think of other things as being such a force and peace being like really chill and peaceful, but it's actually very powerful. And she is one powerful human being from the moment she came out. And, being a mom, turning into a mom much later in life. I mean, I think I was 48 when she was born, 49. It doesn't really matter. Later, I had already lived a good half of my life. All of a sudden being gifted and yet confronted with this little creature that is turned my heart upside down, opened it up, and turned my world upside down in so many ways has been like enormous to me. So there we go.
And she gifts you magical hee-haws all over
She
the
gives
house.
me magical. Yeah.
I'm curious, what you just mentioned, peace being such a great force. I'm with you what you said about so often we think of peace as like almost this passive thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where we're just in a state where we're not doing anything. And so I'm curious. I want to talk about getting unmuted, of course, too, but you opened that door and I'm like, I want to go down that path a little because I think that is a really interesting insight that I haven't necessarily heard anyone else talk about. So when you think about peace being a force, being a great force, I don't know, tell us more about what comes to mind when you think of that.
Well, I'll start with like a work culture. And I say this a lot, actually, that work cultures, when you're entering into a fearful work culture, when you're entering into an angry or a work culture full of scarcity, you just can feel that grip. There's no oxygen in the room, whatnot. When you're entering into a friendly, a warm, a collegiate, a collaborative workforce, there's still wind in the air. It's just not a wind gust that takes your breath away like a scared workforce. So I think of great work cultures, and I think that Vayner, we work on this a lot, is one that still has, it's blue sky, but there's still some clouds in the air. There's still going to be, because nothing is perfect and we don't want utopia. If we had utopia, we wouldn't want utopia. So I think of peace as being the same thing as love. It's the same thing as when you open your heart. That's huge. That's enormous. When you do a loving gratitude, a loving awareness meditation and really do that, like that's not just peace, still. I mean, you're sending a force out into other people's worlds. And funny enough, something that Shalom and I do when we're in airports, and we've been in a few airports in the last year, is we'll be sitting down waiting for to board the plane, and I'll say, let's throw out some peace bombs. And kindness bombs. And so we go like this, and then we go, boom, let's throw in at that person and that person. So spreading, that's how I'm getting her to spread kindness, spread peace. I'm using the word bomb just because she gets that, right? But anyway, I think of like with the work that all of the peaceful warriors have done that have come before us, the Dalai Lama today, Gandhi, anyone you can think of, Mother Teresa. they had so much presence and strength, and their message is still heard today. It'll be heard tomorrow, and it will be heard the next day. It just is that it's that powerful, it's that strong. So that's my thought on peace
Mm.
as a force.
Oh, I love that. We've got a hashtag, Brian. Hashtag peace is a great force. And of course, you got to add a
Ooh,
heart to it.
thanks,
Got
Brian.
to, got to add a heart. So I'm curious, Claude, when you think of, people often ask me, what does it mean to be unmuted? It's like more than the button on Zoom where it's like unmute yourself. It's much, I like to think of it as much more significant than that. And I think all of us have had areas of our lives where we've silenced ourselves. We've silenced our feelings. We've silenced our voice. We've silenced our joy. We've silenced our aspirations and our dreams. And so I'm curious. I like to really understand and hear people's journeys of going through a time in their life just to normalize it. Because sometimes people think I'm the only one who doesn't have that confidence. I'm the only one that struggled with that thing. And when we start to talk about our stories, we realize, how not alone we are. And so, really, wherever you want to go with that, when you think
Yeah,
of some aspect of your life that at one point was muted, that you have unmuted, and what was that journey like for you?
I'm gonna get real, real, real,
Yeah.
real, real. Because it actually has to do with the shirt, and I think it's a good tie-in too. But I was in emotionally and physically abusive relationship. My first relationship with a woman, which lasted 3 or 4 years, and I lived in a state of shock, shame, embarrassment, bewilderedness, heroism, codependence, silence for a very long time, and I just didn't know how to share and unmute because I was so ashamed of myself. I was so mortified that I had gotten myself into this position where I knew better, right? I grew up with understanding what's good, what's not good. And here I was, really had really almost, turned my life over to this person in many ways, and certainly given my sunshine away and given um, my life force away in many ways. I turned into like a shell of myself. And I was 1,000% muted until I wasn't. And that took a while. It took fits and starts. It took moving states, and then she followed me. It took doing this and doing that, and calling police and all kinds of stuff. So that's the real me.
Yeah.
And I've made a lot of peace with that over the years. That was when I was 21 to almost 25, so a very long time ago.
Mm.
Um, so that is what I would say today.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. I think I so appreciate being able to connect in this way and share a story that I think for so long, because of shame and because of that sense of no one can know this about me, and I don't even like that this is true of me, so like I don't even want to know this about me even though it's happening to me, right? Like I kind of want to just almost sometimes like detach this thing that happened. And Nancy shared, she was on the show a couple of weeks ago and shared a story of abuse that she had been through. And as somebody who does that really, really boldly and courageously as well. And so I think the more, and there's always that fear, that hesitation of like, what will people think of me if they know
Mhm.
this? What will people think of me? Um, or will I still be accepted? Will I be able to be okay if this gets released? It's like there's all these concerns and fears that happen. So I'm wondering, you mentioned it was kind of this start and stop, almost kind of these, can feel like a stutter step when we're going through something that's really hard,
Yeah.
and we're not sure how to get out of it, because like it's like we haven't been here before. So how do we navigate? So I'm curious, wherever you want to pick that up from, any part of what was that journey like, and was there a catalyst? Was there a moment? Was there a thing that happened that shifted something in you that caused you to show up differently for yourself or to ask for help? I'm curious, like what happened next?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're in the throes of something like that, which is extremely codependent, just like if you're in an addiction, it's very, it's similar behaviors, where you really lose lose sight of who you are and why you're here. So, you take one step forward and three steps back. So whether or not that was me coming home one day and just saying, "That's it, I'm moving," and packed my whatever I drove at that time up and drove across the United States back home. Whatever it was, I knew better.
Mm.
I knew this was wrong. So that's the okay going forward.
Mm.
Um, But really, I think the last time, and the thing that really made me move on was we had moved to San Francisco and I had developed a really wonderful, warm community there. Like I said, I was on the eve of my 25th birthday, I think. Really great community. And I had friends that I knew I could confide in, and I had my own money that wasn't money that we shared or whatever. And it was just that last punch
Mm.
that made me get it together. Just know that, oh, okay, that's it. That's the last time that's ever going to happen.
Mm.
And I think the next day I found a studio to move into and found a therapist um, and told friends. And it wasn't the end of there were people in that kind of pain are very manipulative and very going through their own demons. But eventually it was just out of sight, out of mind. And it takes a while to recover from those things. But I just said, no, this isn't going to happen. Like, actually, this isn't going to happen anymore.
Yeah.
And I just drew a line.
Mm.
Um, so it was probably a variety of things, but I think finally getting my confidence back by having a wonderful little community in San Francisco and having the wherewithal and the means to get to a freedom. That was it. I just packed whatever I needed up, and you know, decided that I would no longer be muted. And it took me a long time. I will tell you that probably when I took this role on, so 6 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
is probably when I first got public about this. 6 or 5 years ago, when I started to share about this.
Yeah.
Because I recognized that while I'm out in my life as a lesbian,
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't out as a survivor.
Mm.
I'm challenged with the word survivor also, but wasn't out. No one, people, I think, we all look at each other and we assume, oh, she did this and this, and what a great, and this and this. And we never know what people go through. We never, ever know. So, um, uh, the proceeds to these shirts, the emotional optimism shirts, actually, when I put them out in, might have been May of 2020, right as COVID rolled out. Obviously, I was very concerned about people that were locked inside their homes,
Mm-hmm.
going through this type of terrible abuse. So, um, the National Association for Domestic Violence Prevention hotline is one that is near and dear to me, um, and that's where the proceeds, 75% of the proceeds to all my swag go. So there you go.
Mm. That's
I
that's
can't tell you
awesome.
that I'm not shaking a little bit. I am, but
Yeah, it's like right.
yeah,
Sometimes just like taking that moment to.
yeah. I'll tell you, Rachel, what helped me on mute as well. I don't talk about this a lot. I don't really go into it, but I actually went to a therapist and she said, I will only see you. And I was desperate, right? I was desperate. I will only see you if you go to Codependence Anonymous. And I did.
Mm.
And the power of the pack, and I'm reading all these incredible
Yeah.
um, comments here, but like togetherness and community, and that is what allowed me to survive but thrive. I mean, because I was able to start, along with therapy, able to look at why that happened, why I gave my power away, and all those things. So
Mm.
going deep here at 1229 East Coast.
There's no other way to do it. We tell everybody if you come to this show, you're probably going to laugh and you're probably going to cry several times throughout. That's just how it works because we're connected, I think so often it's easy for us, or we feel like we have to disconnect. And I just want to give a pause for a moment and just recognize some of what's being said here, right? Like the I knew better shame that can happen. And Mariah, will come to your question in a moment about how this experience has helped you to perhaps see pain in others and help to shape your leadership journey. We'll come to that. And I think there's this sense, even what you just mentioned, of like calling attention to how we're feeling in the moment and how our body's responding. So calling attention to like, I'm shaking a bit, or calling attention to, I'm noticing my heart racing a bit, because I see a somatic therapist. I've been seeing her for
Mhm.
a year and a half after dealing with getting hit by that truck and fracturing my back 2 years ago. Next week will be the anniversary of that accident. And somatic therapy has been an absolute gift in so many ways. And I remember we were having a conversation, like every time at therapy, she's always asking me to pause because I can talk really fast and we do this, or we get it all out. And she says, I want you to pause, notice, what are you feeling in your body? Constantly has me come back to what are you noticing and where are you noticing it? What are you noticing? Where are you noticing it? Because we get so in our heads, right? And we forget that like we're in a body.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing that because I went to a somatic therapist and I did a lot of tapping as well. And
Yeah.
I think that was very helpful for me because as a person very capable of disassociating and compartmentalizing, um, that forced me to feel. And I didn't want to feel those things.
Oh gosh, no.
But I knew I wanted to heal, and um, I knew there was a purpose for me to be here. I didn't necessarily land on it back then when I was 25. It took me a little bit of time, but I um, I was able to welcome myself back,
Mm.
and that's something I really enjoy doing with people and holding space for them, whatever's going on with them, to welcome them back.
Mm.
Like the poetry
Yeah. Let's
story.
go there. I mean, I know we'll and hear about how you even got into this
Yeah,
position, because being chief heart officer, there's not like you wouldn't search on LinkedIn and find like 10,000 of you. Hopefully like 5 to 10 years from now we will, right?
yeah,
That'll be the normal. Like
yeah,
let's make that happen.
totally.
It's a movement, but I'm curious, I'm sure everyone here, and you've got lots of fans in here, so I'm sure hopefully that you'll get to go back and see these comments just around like how like feeling helps us to heal, right? Feeling facilitates healing and it's necessary. Absolutely, Randy. We're so aligned on that, Randy.
Wow, yeah, I love that.
And
Healing,
so
healing. Wow,
let's
cool.
see, in the moment you give yourself permission to get your power back is the moment you start to truly live. That's what
Yeah,
um, Andrea said. So, and Alex commented, yeah, really. Yeah, somatic therapy. Google it. Google it. They're not always
yeah,
easy to find, but they do exist and they're incredible. And soma meaning body. So they're therapists that are really trained in how to integrate the mind and body instead of just doing talk therapy. They recognize that, especially trauma, any trauma is body, there's a body basis to it and there's a body response. And so I know I've talked about it before on here, but the book, in reach, because I always reference it, The Body Keeps the Score, one of the best books on
yeah.
this topic, right, of brain, mind, and body in the healing of trauma. It's just this book is a gift, and it's what got me to realize I think the therapy you need is that somatic. So and just yes, appreciation for you, a thriver, a teacher, an inspiration. I saw the
Thank
words warrior and hero earlier, so you said not wanting to, don't really like the word survivor, like the word thriver
thank
and warrior and hero, right? Whatever.
thank you.
Um,
Thank you.
so
I turn all of these I don't have I'm for whatever reason, I can't comment back, but thank you so
it's okay.
much, and I'm very, proud and privileged to be part of this community.
Mm.
Really. I really mean it, like, it's good.
Yeah, I saw your video the other day where you were like, just thank you to
Yeah.
my LinkedIn peeps, like
It feels good.
it
Feels
does.
good.
Yeah.
So thank you. What were we talking where were we going
Yeah,
next?
I know, we go all over. So what I wanted to talk about, when we were talking about I'd just love to hear how does one become a chief heart
Oh,
officer
right.
at, VaynerX? Like, how did that even come to be? I know everyone that's here would love to hear that. And then I would love for you to share whenever it feels relevant to share the story about the
Of
team member
course.
that you talked to in the poem. Yes.
Yes, totally. And I'm just looking, there was a question
Yes, there was a
about
question from Mariah about
Mariah.
do you
Yeah,
think that what you went through has helped you to see pain in others and to become the leader that you've become?
a zillion, million, trillion, zillion, 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 zillion%. It it is empathy.
Mm,
That's it.
yeah.
Um, yes. So I much like probably a lot of people on this call, I've always been me. I've always had a big heart. I've always been able to feel other people in many ways. I didn't know it was called intuition as a 5-year-old, but I just had a knack for people, and just picking up on people. By the way, I've had to really work on my energy and energy management because of that, right? And so, like, getting involved in an abusive relationship is part of that.
Yeah.
I have a knack, I have a beam that goes out to people that are sad or whatever. um, but I worked in advertising for a long time, and I guess I should say I started my leadership team building journey on Outward Bound when I was 19. And I was a 93-day Outward Bound course that I've talked a lot about. I was the only young woman with 9 stinky young men and 93 days and heavy backpacks and no toilet paper and all of that stuff, no showers, and um, except every 18 days. And it's in that course, I started that course with a lot of self-hatred and a lot of noise in my head. In fact, I tell the story of how on the first day I was, traversing up this very large mountain with everyone else. It was snowing, it was nighttime. I had 80 pounds on my back and I was way in the back. And the instructor came uh coming, she came back to me and she goes, "What's going on in your head?" And I said, and I was crying. I said, I'm singing Nine Inch Nails, Head Like a Hole, Black as Your Soul. I'll never, I'll whatever to give you control. Terrible. I mean, great, way to go, Nine Inch Nails, but like terrible message. And she said straight up, "You need to get a different song in your head." Anyway, came out of Outward Bound, and I learned, that we have a narrative and all of this stuff, and came out and went into teaching ropes courses, and once I was it 20 right after 9/11, I got laid off in San Francisco, as most of us did, and my partner at the time and I started an outdoor adventure company teaching surfing about 250 days a year. I had that killer tan. I was Pacific Ocean's cold. And so I'm a cheerleader. I'm a champ. I'm a player coach. I'm like, you can do this. I got you. I will be here. I got you. Whatever you need, and so forth and so on. And when I was in London working on, I met Gary when I was living in London. I was working on, brands that you and I buy at Walmart or Walgreens, whatever. It just dawned on me that I just had no more passion for, sitting in a meeting and figuring out, like, does the leaf go here or does the leaf go here? And should this be an open path? But I love the team that does this. Meanwhile, Gary and I met, we fell for each other, and he moved me to New York 8 years ago, almost to the day.
Mm.
And I started as his first SVP, and I ran a very large Unilever book of business and all this stuff. And um, but we hit it off. And soon after joining, he had me going to these other offices to go do that thing that you do. And he was the first boss that even in go do that thing that you do, he recognized that there was something else I do and provide rather than, sitting here. And so on my year anniversary, I actually said, I love you. I love this place, but I'm no longer interested in advertising. He said, "What are you interested in?" I said, "I only care about people. I only care about the heartbeat of this place." And so one thing led to another. And I mean, he's so smart to just know he needed this role, regardless if it's me or, Billie Jean King, it doesn't really matter. Um, and we sat down for breakfast and he said, "That's it. You're going to be chief heart officer." And I knew what that was because it's who I've been. It's the red thread, facilitating growth, facilitating teams, facilitating, you know, expansion. And I said to him two things. One, how do we, what are we doing here? Right. I had already been at the company more than a year and a half. So I knew the skeletons. I knew where things were needed some life and love pumped into them. And he said, we're building the greatest human organization in the history of time. And I was like, great, aspirational, sign me up, never going to be done. And then I said, how do we know if I'm successful? That's the only thing I said. And that continues to be my job description, which is you'll touch every single employee and infuse the agency with empathy. And so we were 450 people then, we're 1,600 now. And I get to, it's not a job for me. I mean, it is in the fact that I close my laptop, but I'm excited about what is going to happen anytime I, log on or I go into the office, and who's going to be here and what story they're going to share with me and where we can take them, where I can take them, and listening for their limiting beliefs and listening for the things that they're not saying, and trying to really figure out how to help connect them to other people, because that's the strength of Vayner, is the connective tissue, and also how to connect them to themselves and what they're all about. Yeah. That's my journey.
I love that. I just want to take a pause to call out some of the things that are being said here. We need more honest, tell it like it is, self-aware leaders like you in corporate America. From Zach, he does a lot of work in the caregiving space, which is like so needed now more than ever.
Thank you.
And then I love Alex says, Brene Brown says, empathy isn't about putting yourself in someone's shoes, but rather learning how to listen to the story of what it's like in their shoes and believe you, even if it doesn't match your own experience.
Yeah. Amen. I always say being an empath is being a passenger with someone. It's being a passenger on their journey, but I don't take it on. I don't step into their shoes. I am there riding shotgun until they don't want me to ride shotgun, or until it's unhealthy to ride shotgun.
Yeah. So Alex, thanks for bringing that.
Thank you.
To the forefront. And then Nan says, we should all work for a company that values empathy and heart so much that they have a chief heart officer. Amen.
Yeah.
So I love one of the things when we were working on this engagement boot camp last year with a group of broker consult like Eric Silverman and Ed Legandi and Megan Torello, and I'm gonna miss don't say other names, but hey, there's Eric. Speaking of, and I remember one of the things that you shared with me, and what I'd love to do. Well, one, if anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them into the comments. If you have any questions that you'd like us to talk about in this conversation, but I would love to hear two things specifically. One, the story and how it came to be the story of the poet. And I know that you know what that is. And then just secondly, you mentioned that you're returning to office next week. And I know that a lot of people and a lot of organizations, and I'm working with a lot of organizations to help them navigate those conversations and how they approach that. So I would love to hear anything you want to share about what your process has been to create a space where the needs of the business are addressed and the voices of employees and the concerns of employees and the needs of employees are heard and met and responded to. Would love to go down that path.
Okay. Oh, so the poetry, here comes, people put 15 minutes on my calendar, or I proactively put 15 minutes on their calendar if I have like a spidey sense about something or want to check in. And here came up on Zoom this young gentleman. He was 23, never met him before. And he said, Chris told me I should get some time with you. So I'm here. And I was like, oh, okay. I love Chris. That's great. Cool. And right off the bat, he just shared with me that he struggles with depression. And that's that. Basically, it was pretty straightforward. And it was really like, I struggle with depression. And the conversation could have ended there, or I could have HR'd it and said, blah, 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 which I wouldn't have. So I just said to him, hey, what do you do when you feel sad? What do you do? Like, what do you do when you feel a bout of depression coming on? And he said, I write poetry. And I said, oh my goodness, I would love to hear some of your poems. And he said, only if you share your favorite poet and poem with me. And so I looked up Derek Walcott Love After Love, and which is a beautiful, beautiful poem. And I read it to him, and it makes me cry all the time. And then he read me 3 of his poems, and we were in tears afterwards. So it was only really a 20-minute connection, but in those 20 minutes, I mean, the fact that he chose to share, and then he asked me. He didn't have to ask me,
Yeah.
but I'm so glad I was able to read that one to him, because it's really such a, I think everyone can relate probably to that poem, Derek Walcott, because it really is about coming home to yourself. So that was that story. And then at the end of it, he said, "Now I can see why Chris told me to come talk to you." And I was like, "Oh, that's exactly it. That's scaling. That's scale. That is helping one person, but scaling what it is we want to do here. Because it's not just me doing it or Gary. It takes an enormous village to keep us pumping. You know,
Yeah.
it's easy to be cynical. It's super easy to go down that windy road. And so you really have to fight for peace and fight for connection and outing, if you will, when someone doesn't feel safe, or when they feel like they are not being listened to, or whatever it could be. I mean, today I've already had, it's 12:45 here. I've already had one termination meeting, and I will say termination because that's what we call it,
Mhm.
where we had to let someone go in one of our other offices. And later on today, I'll have another one that will be a heads up. This is where things are going.
Mhm.
But how do you do that with love? And how do you do that with kindness? And I will say one thing I do, we all have rituals throughout our days. And obviously in an office, you used to have like the high five or shaking hands or whatever. Um, however, throughout my whole life, when I've had to have very challenging conversations with people at work, or exit conversations, if I'm in the office, I do a round of walking, and I say the serenity prayer.
Mhm.
I always say the serenity prayer before I go into that kind of conversation, because I need to remember that I can only change certain things.
Yeah.
And again, that's something I didn't know early on. So anyway, that's that story. And but it all blends together, right? Because getting into, as we go into the office next week, and now that we know in New York it will be next week, we have we're doing hybrid. It's
Mhm.
only 2 or 3 days a week, every other week. So it's really only amasses to 8 days a month,
Mhm.
9 days a month. And listening, my team, myself, everyone, whoever, line managers, listen to what is it that people need? What are their emotional needs now coming back into the office? Is it riding public transportation? Oh, I could understand why. Is it I have children at home, or is it I just I'm in what did I hear last week? I'm an introvert, and I do better work at home.
Mhm.
All of these things are things that we need to take into consideration, and it will be loud in the office. And right now, it's not loud in your home office, wherever that might be.
It's
So there's a
yeah.
lot, and there's a lot to keep top of mind in terms of emotional health and wellness,
Mhm.
because I have my own anxieties about going to work.
Yeah.
I have my own apprehension. I have my own excitement.
Mhm.
I can't wait to see people, and I'm sure I'm going to want to race home and be here too.
Yeah. Yeah, and I appreciate I haven't heard anyone having the structure of what you're doing in terms of 2 to 3 days every other week.
Mhm.
Because I know most of the data that I've looked at and read and shared is that people have really found a way to create, especially if they had a really long commute before, there's this sense of autonomy that people have gotten used to in terms of
Yeah.
how they run their day, where they run their day. And so to have that be like taken away, I think is a perception by a lot of people.
Hmm.
Um, that can be really scary to your
Yeah.
point to people and generate some kind of I think normal anxiety. Like, of course, you would feel that way in the midst of a change.
Of course. Yeah, of course. And the fact is that people feel like they can unmute themselves. And we all know that this younger generation of Gen Z and younger millennials are very vocal,
Yeah.
like it or not. They're
Yeah.
very vocal. And so how do you hold that space for people with no judgment? And also, super important, not having to have all the answers, because God knows I don't. I'm one person, and I work very closely with our COO, and he's one person, and so we're doing what we can, and we'll see what happens.
Listening to a podcast that Brene Brown did the other day with a guy named Stephen, I think Sonnenschein, I think his name is, and they were just talking about one of the things that too few leaders are willing to say right now is we're going to try this,
Yeah,
and we don't know if it's going to work, but we're going to keep the lines of communication open so that as we're navigating this, we can figure it out together.
yeah, that's it. That's it. And gosh, I don't think it's difficult to say that, but that's also we give a lot of people autonomy at work. I don't care. I could care less where they do their work. I could care less where they take that meeting. And so they have so much runway to really create and architect the role outside of the job description, right? Oh, I got to do these 5 things. I'm a project manager. Well, okay, cool. Do it your way, Rachel. Do it your way, Joni. Do it your way. Certainly don't do it my way. And when the day comes that someone takes this role, or if we choose to have these roles in other offices, like, people are going to do it their way. I've based this role based on my personality, quite frankly, what I know Gary wants and needs for the culture. And then, I work for all of these people. I work with and for. So I'm taking in data all day long and listening for patterns and seeing what needs to be tweaked. Or do I really need to go take that airplane flight over there? Okay, I do. All right, I'll do that. Who needs more reinforcements? Who can I introduce you to the 10 people I can introduce you to so you get more of a flavor of us quicker and you don't feel alone, whatever it is. It's fun.
It is.
It's important. It's important.
It's to your point. You were mentioning the spidey senses earlier. It's like having those out and open, and being receptive. There's this openness and receptivity and curiosity that I think allows these interactions even to happen that you mentioned. And I think Toby here, I mentioned, say kudos for being a person who can handle all the emotional life your purpose brings. I'm overwhelmed and drained just hearing you talk about being so involved in the emotional lives of others. Like, so what do you do? What do you do to, certainly being home? It sounds like being with your family is very replenishing for you. What are the other things that you do to keep your heart filled?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, this is everything. My kids are everything. Cooking has become a real thirst of mine in the last 2 years, and creatively cooking. Listening to music is huge, and finding music when I have those times that I can be alone and find music. And and this is something this was new for me, really counting on my core group, my girls that I've known since birth, my high school girls, my people in London that I met when I moved there, those 6 people, I would say, that really know me inside and out, and know the warts,
Yeah.
They really, they just write me, get me on the right. And I will say, because I did a lot of energy work in my later 20s and 30s and learned about holding space and practiced. I was going to be a psychotherapist, so I practiced as a somatic psychotherapist.
Okay.
I use a lot of the tools that I use now to be able to, as I continue to say, hold space. The space is right here. Even my poetry conversation, it affected my heart. It touched my heart, but it didn't, I got out of bed the next day.
Yeah. Yeah. And knowing how to do that and learning how to do that and practicing how to do that, I think is part of what makes this sustainable for you, right? Because if every time you took on somebody else's stuff,
it's impossible.
It's just not.
Yeah, it's impossible. And I now take 15 to 30 minute breaks when I need to throughout the day. because I need to, because I'm not a machine. And, I need to replenish. I need to eat. I need to get up and walk and all of that stuff. So I've learned, I would say being at home has taught me how to take better care of myself
Mm.
during the workday. And I try to share that as much as I can. And it's really all around the management of my energy
Yeah.
allows me then to manage my time a little bit better.
Yeah. Yeah, that's and Alex, we're gonna come to your question in a second. There's a book, Tony Schwartz with the Energy Project, and he talks about managing your energy and versus managing your time. And I know that Dan Pink in his book When has a chart, a PDF. I'm happy to, if anybody wants this, feel free to send me a DM and I'll send it to you. It's a PDF of something called the When Daily Planner. And on the When Daily Planner, you list in the top what your MIT, your most important task is. And then he has you track, when do you peak, when do you hit a trough, and when do you recover? And notice the times that you do that and notice what you're doing at those times. And then he has built in on the worksheet 2 times to take a break. Like, what were the 2 times you took a break and what did you do? And at the very bottom, what are 3 things you got done that day, personally or professionally? And it's just a 1-pager, a PDF, very simple, but it gives people that sense of being able to track their own progress and also have an awareness of their energy kind of peaks and valleys during the day, which most people haven't taken the time to even think about the fact that that happens,
Yeah, totally.
Um,
Dan Pink wrote a book that really was life-changing for me called A Whole New Mind. And I read it several years when it came out because it really shared that there's a place for me in the work world, for those of us that are, was it more, I can't even know, is it left brain, right brain? I don't know, but more empathic. And I had the opportunity to thank him one day for that. It was a real life changer. So I echo what you said. Anything he writes is really spot on, very
yeah,
helpful.
he's a great guy. So what I want to do, I know we're in our last couple minutes. We could talk for like 2 hours
Yeah,
easily,
easily.
continuing this conversation. But I want to honor your time as well. I know Alex had a question. He said, "Do you think the pandemic made work cultures more or less vulnerable? And how can organizations foster more vulnerability in person when they come back in the office?"
Yeah, that was such a great question, Alex. Alex and I got to meet the other day. Yeah, I mean, I think they made the cultures more translucent. I think you could see through the screen, see through the shower curtain to see what that culture was really built on, and was it one that could carry its people and be could it do triage, but then could it come back from triage and what's the word, evolve?
Yeah.
And not all the cultures could. We happen to have done really well, really well in these past 2 years, but we're a very high touch culture. It's a very different scene than maybe a banking culture, I'll just say.
Yeah.
And I don't think you need to necessarily, we've seen that you don't need to sit together to come up with creative ideas. It's awesome when you can, because you can share yourself. And so the tips in which to do that, I think, are really ones that show, I really think the leaders sharing their vulnerability and their realness and authenticity, like realness with people, like whether, I don't know, your kid spelled his frosted flakes on your lap today, like real shit, helps people then know that they're safe to be real as well. And that's the thing about cultures. If you don't have that safety, then you can just continue building on sand, but it will be sand. At some point, the waves will come and they will wash them away. So a high touch culture means, like, look, I speak to probably 15 to 20 people a day, whether or not it's on Slack, text, Gary's leaning in. There's a mass of people that are touching base with people and seeing how they're doing. And doing what I'm doing really on more of a micro, although I'm doing it micro and macro, and then taking that information to whomever. Well, that person needs more training and development with management training. This person had a really bad review. They're feeling terrible. This person just had an anxiety attack. This person wants to change teams. This person thinks we're the greatest thing since sliced bread. It's people. We're like, we're just amazing beautiful, messy, glorious
Yeah.
humans.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't agree more. And I think the more that we create space for people to have these conversations. So if you're bringing them back and you're inviting them to connect with each other, you know, inviting everyone at the start of a meeting to share a picture on their phone about someone that's meaningful to them or something they're grateful for, or you know, inviting them to have conversations about so what's going well for you in this new setup that we have, getting people to share stories of what's working, and then saying, what is a challenge that you're facing, and then getting them to bring that into the conversation. And then perhaps there's somebody in that group who's had and then navigated a similar challenge and they have insight to offer. So I think so much of it is just like democratizing wisdom in an organization, that every single person that works at an organization has the capacity to contribute something. And we oftentimes are just not inviting them into the fold enough. And when we take the opportunity to invite them into the fold and to ask a generative question or to ask a question rooted in genuine curiosity and care, then we can foster this deeper sense of vulnerability and connection because we're allowing for it and we're creating an expectation that this is what we do here. We have conversations about things that matter.
Yeah, totally. And you know what gets in the way, aside from fear and all that other crud, is titles
Mm.
and hierarchy,
Oh,
and
yeah.
people feeling like they can't voice their vibe.
Yes.
To Brian's point, which is like, oh, you got to
Yes.
voice your vibe. You
Gotta voice.
deserve to voice your vibe. You matter. Your vibe
Yes.
matters.
Yes. Everyone's does. Like, to create a true vibration. Like, I mean, like, even the fireworks show I saw in Louisville on Saturday is the biggest one in the country. And I think about like each one of those fireworks needs to go off to create what feels like a sonic boom in the air. Like every single one of them contributes something, and everyone's voice matters. And
Yeah.
we can't just say that. We can't just say, hey, your voice matters, and then we're going to survey you once a year on an engagement survey and then never care about what you like. We can't do that.
Yeah. That's so no.
You know.
People can call BS on that real quick.
Yeah. Real quick, real quick.
Real.
You know, so I feel like, just to close, you'd mentioned music. So I'm curious, is there a song or songs that maybe a song that when you're just having a moment and you just need to connect to something? I'm reading Susan Cain's book, Bittersweet, her newest book, and she talks
Hmm.
about how sad songs are actually can do more to activate a sense of compassion in us, and than even just listening to a happy song. So I'm curious too, what's a song that's like your go-to pick me up? You mentioned being somebody who's a cheerleader and a player coach. What's like your pick me up go-to song? And then what's a song that when you're just having a day and you just need a song that validates that feeling, what is a song that comes up?
It's so funny. Oh, I'm very emo. So sad songs are probably where I live most of the time. But what I will say is I like Modest Mouse Float On. That always boosts me up. In a Big Country, an oldie but goodie. I'm a real child of the 80s
Mm,
for sure. I'm a big, big Cure head.
mm,
So and the National and that kind of music. So I just dip into one of those songs. I mean, they could be whatever. The Cure really speaks it for me.
okay.
For sure. So, and then I like a lot of trance, like a lot of vocal trance, which is just like,
Mm.
can't necessarily say it's like happy music, but it's, look, my daughter, all she wants to do is listen to Taylor Swift, Lady Gaga, and someone else now we just had on. So I'm getting into the happier music movement because of her.
Oh, I love that.
Shake it off. Oh, shake it off for sure.
uh,
Yeah. Dog
so
days are
good.
over. Yeah, for sure.
So good. So feel free, if you haven't already, drop in the comments what your favorite, either just I don't know, I don't want to call it a sad song. What's like your heart song? What's a song that when you need something to validate what you're feeling in your heart that you
Mm,
listen to?
yeah,
Laura loves your taste in music, by the way.
thank you, Laura.
And I feel like there's you know, I often sing on here and share songs, and I wasn't planning to. I think I know we're a couple minutes over, and I want to honor and respect your time, but I feel like when I think of a snippet of a song that kind of captures a little bit of the essence of this conversation, um, I think I think it's a song that we're all familiar with, and that's what the world needs now is love, sweet love. It's the only thing that there's just too little of. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. No, not just for some, but for everyone. That's what I feel like. Kind of.
Yay! That was beautiful.
Thanks.
I don't think I've heard you sing before.
Oh, yeah. I'll send you
Yeah.
something. I did a Let It Be, and I've done a bunch of stuff. Hallelujah. I did Tori Kelly's version of Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah last week.
Nice.
I'll send you
Yeah,
some of
please do.
those. Because that's my heart. Like singing is the thing that I muted for so much of my life. And then now is something that I'm like, you can't mute your joy. Stop it.
Yeah. Right.
Like,
Can't mute your joy.
like don't,
No way.
and I Somewhere Over the Rainbow is another one too. I'll have to send you that because I always think of that when I
Love it.
see the shirts. But just wonderful. Alex, what LinkedIn needs now is more of your singing. You're so sweet, Alex. More to come. Well, I just want to say, drop in the comments maybe what the greatest gift that Claude gave you today, or just what being part of this experience was, joining us. We always have such an emphatic group of people that come out for these conversations that are so active in the comments and sharing their hearts and sharing their stories and experiences. And it's so validating for me too, because I struggled to feel like I fit in and like I belonged for most of my life. And so now as an adult, I really feel that this sense of community really, as you were alluding to earlier, it gives us courage to do and be so much more than we could otherwise. And it's such a gift. And so I just want to thank every single one of you for being here with us today. And Michael and Zach and Brian and Tim and Nancy and Jason and Mariah and Brian, several Brians and Stefan and Barbara, just so many, and Alex, Frankie, so many incredible people, Laura, Mark, who were here today and joining us. And Claude, I just want to thank you for your time, for sharing your heart the way that you do every day, for sharing your story. Everyone follow Claude on all the social medias. You will have a better day just by engaging with anything that she posts. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. This was awesome. And I really want to just thank the community for holding us here.
Yeah.
This was really great. Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Have a beautiful, beautiful day. Yeah.
Bye, everybody.